Hello and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video we're going to keep looking at the Mirage MTGO decks, and we're going to look at Jungle Jam, which is a white, green, red deck. So yeah, this is kind of interesting, right, to have an actual like 3-color deck. Well, it would be if it was actually like a really 3-color deck, but it's 3-color in the worst way possible, as we'll see as we look at it. Let's take a look at the deck list. So we've got 24 creatures, 5 instants, 5 enchantments, 3 sorceries, and 23 land. We've got a mana curve off to the side there. As you will see, there is a distinct lack of red in that mana curve, and we'll get to it, don't worry. So, what's I think really like interesting and charming about this deck is there is actually like a minor Griffin tribal aspect to it. Not in like any way that we sort of like see tribal synergies these days. But yeah, it's just the fact we have Zuberi Golden Feather, who's 4 and a white for a 3/3 with flying. He counts as a Griffin because we can't. I sort of said this in the anthologies video like ages and ages ago, but like don't know why you can just put Griffin Legend in that type line. Don't know why we had to have rules text saying he counts as a Griffin. It's so weird. Anyway. But yeah, this is the absolute bare minimum of tribal synergy in the fact it gives all other Griffins +1/+1, and yeah, no, I just think it's cool that Griffins have something, because there's a whole bunch of Griffins in Mirage block, and if it was like I don't know, like Mirage Remaster or something, like I don't know if they ever went back and like did Mirage sort of like with modern set design, like I could see like Griffins being like I don't know, like maybe like the green white like draft archetype or something like that. I don't know, but yeah, it's just fun to see Griffins get some love, because they are a very undervalued tribe. I feel they're like the white equivalent of Drakes in the fact they're always there and they're always kind of mediocre, and yeah. I don't know, but yeah, this is a cool rare to have Zuberi Golden Feather. One of the few legends actually from Mirage, because obviously that was just kind of a thing with sets back at the time. We just didn't really have a lot of legendary creatures like we do these days. So then we've got 2 Matenda Griffins, 3 and a white for a 2/2 with flying. And you spend 1 white and tap it. Return Matenda Griffin to owner's hand and return target Griffin card in your graveyard to your hand. Use this ability only during your upkeep. So yeah, like more Griffin synergies here, that it can bounce itself and bring a dead one back to your hand as well, and like recast it, which I think is like a really like fun ability. This is what I mean, right? Like this could be, you could build a whole kind of like archetype and tribal synergies around this kind of effect. It'd be really fun, I think. So yeah, really nice there's 2 of them in here. I say there's so many Griffins in Mirage that like weirdly this has a lot of targets to hit, and most of them are in this deck. You got 2 Ikundu Griffin, 3 and a white for a 2/2 with flying first strike. This is just Razorfoot Griffin, but from a different place, I suppose. But like it's still good, I suppose. 2 Teremko Griffin, 3 and a white for a 2/2 with banding and flying. And banding is around, so we actually finally get to talk about banding. This is not the place to do it, I think, because there is a mono white deck, I think, in the next set in Visions, where there's obviously a lot more banding, and we will definitely talk about banding then. I say this is not the time or place to talk about banding. I've just warbled on about Griffins, but yeah, we will come back to it. But yeah, again, this is I think sort of okay to have 4 mana for a 2/2 with banding and flying. And then in Yarrow Griffin, 3 and white, he's spotting a theme here with these Griffins, 3 and a white, for a 2/2 flyer, and you can sacrifice it to counter a red spell that assigns damage to you or a creature you control. Yeah, so just free sacrifice to counter a red spell. So that's all right, isn't it? I suppose. Maybe fairly niche, but like it's still another Griffin. And you can get it back with Matenda Griffin and keep replaying it and keep countering red burn spells. So there we go. That's an option, I suppose. Then we've got a Benevolent Unicorn, 1 and white for a 1/2. Whenever a spell assigns damage to a creature or player, that damage is reduced by 1. So again, more like anti-red burn spells. Although like black obviously had like some burn spells around at the time, in addition to just normal like straight up kill spells. So yeah, this is okay. And I think like tacking this effect onto just like a 2-drop, I think is absolutely fine. So yeah, this is all right. Right, so here we go. The only red card in the deck that uses red mana anyway, Sawback Manticore, which is the other rare in the deck, which I think is a huge misstep to make, honestly. So 3 a red and a green for a 2/4, which is obviously horrible stats. You can pay 4 to give it flying until end of turn, which is also horrible. And then you spend 1 to have it deal 2 damage to an attacking or blocking creature, but you can use that ability only once each turn, and only if Sawback Manticore is attacking or blocking. So it doesn't have to be the creature that like Sawback Manticore is blocking or being blocked by. I suppose that is an option. But and like, you know, paying only 1 for 2 damage is sort of okay. But yeah, generally I just think this is not the best card to include in here. I say this is the only red card in the deck. Like, it wasn't worth making this deck tri-colored just to try and make Sawback Manticore of all cards work. I definitely think the deck would be a lot stronger as just being green-white. So yeah, can't give my approval to Sawback Manticore, because I do think it's sort of, well, the thing is, like, it's one card, so it doesn't drag the deck down, does it? But like, it just, I don't know, it's just pointless to include it, you know. Anyway, so we've got 3 Quirion Elves, which I think is really actually quite nice. So 1 and a green for a 1/1. When you play Quirion Elves, you choose a color, and you can either add green or the mana of the chosen color, which in this deck is almost likely going to be white, because you're not going to go absolutely mad and choose red just to play your 1 Sawback Manticore. So yeah, most of the time this is just a mana dork for green or white, which is absolutely fine. We've got 3 Jolrael Centaur, so 1 and double green for a 2/2 with flanking and shroud, which is like, for 3 mana at the time, is like really efficient, right? So flanking actually has quite some, has some fairly functional, nice reminder text here. Whenever a creature without flanking blocks a flanking creature, the blocking creature gets -1/-1 to 10/10. So it can just kill X1s without flanking that block it, which is really nice. Again, we've got like a deck coming up which is going to have like flanking in it a lot more, so we'll talk about it more then. But it was mostly in white and red, but yeah, some green, some black. I think 1 or 2 blue cards might have had flanking, but it was primarily in white and red, kind of like banding actually. But yeah, Jolrael Centaur is actually pretty good, and having 3 of them is actually really nice, I think. We've got 2 Foratogs, 2 and a green for a 1/2, and you pay 1 green, sacrifice Forest, give it +2/+2 to end turn. It's alright, maybe. It's an Atog, which at the time were not great. There was a whole bunch of like these Mirage Atogs, which were not wonderful, honestly. It wasn't until Dr. Teeth in Odyssey where Atogs got like a bit more notoriety. But like, Foratog is okay, because I suppose, like, late game, you got a load of forests. He just eats them all and becomes like really big. I suppose that could be okay. So sure. I mean, like I always say, it's like maybe better to have this ability and not use it than need it and not have it, I suppose, if that makes sense. 2 Nisseltooth Jin, so 3 and a green for a 4/4, which, like, even by today sounds like a 4 mana for 4. It would be fairly boring, but like back then it was super efficient. So efficient they had to tack a drawback onto it. During upkeep it does 1 damage to you. But like, at the time, really efficient to have like a 4 mana 4/4, and like not double green or anything. It's just, so sort of okay for the time, I think. And it's during a time when creatures just are not as big, so like genuinely quite a big threatening thing to deal with, I think. Got 3 Gibbering Hyenas, 2 and a green for 3/2. It can't block black creatures, which I feel is like such a small downside, honestly. For again, like a 3/2 for 3, which is like, again, nothing amazing by today's standards, especially because it's a 3/2 for 3 with a drawback and no other abilities. But again, at the time, this would have been sort of okay. Right, and then again, like the last deck, just randomly had like, oh, by the way, Mystical Tutor. We're just going to have Worldly Tutor in here, which is like, again, like such a absolute bonkers good card. So it's a 1 mana tutor, so 1 green mana, instant speed. Search your library for a creature card, reveal that card to all players, and then shuffle your library, put the revealed card back on top of it. So again, like Mystical Tutor, like no cost restrictions in what it can get. It just gets a creature, and like, it doesn't go into hand, whatever. But it's like a tutor at instant speed for 1 mana. You do it instant speed, so you can just put it on top and then you can draw it next turn. This is a really good card to include. I think it's in here because like I don't think it was rare at the time printing. I think it was uncommon, like Mystical Tutor was. So I'm gonna need someone to confirm that. But like, I don't think it's the other rare in the deck, because I think the 2 rares are Zuberi Golden Wing and the Sawback Manticore. So really crazy that like, not only is this card included, but also at the time it was not considered like a rare. It's just like, this is kind of fine, I suppose. I don't know actually, because I say this is before I was kind of in the game, if like these tutor cards were considered like really good at the time and were just like, considered like really strong uncommons, or like they only became more like sought after and more like not notorious, but like regarded better like later in the game's history when like people seeing them were like, oh my god, like one man shooters are really powerful. I don't know, that'd be interesting. Like if someone was around playing at that time, could shed a bit of light on that. Right, and we've got 2 Armor of Thorns. So one in the green, it's an aura, goes on a creature. You may choose to play Armor of Thorns as an instant. If you do, bury it at end of turn. And again, this is like weird wording. So there's a whole keyword trivia attached to this in a minute, but we'll do this first. So Armor of Thorns, 2 mana, play only on a non-black creature. Enchanted creature has +2/+2. So like 2 mana, aura that can be played at instant speed. But basically, if you play it anytime that it can't be played as a sorcery, like then it doesn't get sacrificed again. And this is always a weird thing that's going to come up with these Mirage era cards. It's not sacrifice, it's bury. So if for any reason, if you're playing this in like with more modern cards and you found a way of giving indestructible, it doesn't get destroyed because it's not a sacrifice effect. It is buried, which is destroyed without regeneration, which is so weird because yeah, like sacrifice was obviously in the game, so I don't know why it wasn't chosen. But yeah, I'm gonna say one word, which which will probably mean something to like 10% of people watching. Substance. And that is just a hunt. Like, you know what? I'm going to stick a link to substance below because it was a whole keyword that was invented to basically make this card work online or like within the rule set at the time. And it's like it's so convoluted. Like, I won't go into it. I'll stick a link to it, and you can read it and just like be like, what is this madness? But yeah, because it's a keyword that essentially exists to do nothing, if that makes sense. But yeah, I'll stick a link below because it is really interesting to read up on it. Yeah, and then we've got 3 Rampant Growth, 1 in the green, classic Rampant Growth. I think this is the first time Rampant Growth got printed. Actually, thinking about it, because just like this is actually kind of thing of Mirage Block. I'm really going off on a lot of tangents here, but like Mirage Block was like the first set to introduce like I feel like Mirage Block is when like Magic really like found its legs, like it finally kind of worked out what it was doing, and like we got like a lot of like really staple effects that like we sort of take for granted now, like Rampant Growth, whereas sort of the sets before were just kind of like here's these really weird, complicated, convoluted cards, and like this is and Mirage is like the set where we're getting like really straightforward, simple utility effects like Rampant Growth, like pacifism, stuff like that. So yeah, don't take Rampant Growth for granted because there was a time when it didn't exist. There was obviously land ramp spells before, but like not as straightforward as Rampant Growth. I think there was Untamed Growth maybe back in Alpha, which was like a lot more expensive. Anyway, but yeah, 3 Rampant Growth, which was really nice anyway, because as I said, we've got like a fairly high mana curve, all those Griffins. God, finally off that slide, felt like we were on there forever. Right, single Afterlife, 2 and a white, berry type creature, and put an Essence token into play. It is now Spirit under Oracle text. It is a 1/1 white flying creature. This is nice. This is actually a pretty good removal spell, I think. Like 3 mana to kill anything, and in return they get a 1/1 Spirit. This is kind of like, I guess, like the era's equivalent of like Beast Within, maybe. Like, you kill something, you give them a small token creature that you can easily deal with, like much further deal with a 1/1 flying spirit than like whatever you use this on. So yeah, I think this is okay. Single Disenchant, just a bit utility. Ivory Charm. So yeah, oh wow, we get to talk about charms as well, because Mirage is the first set that uses charms, because they just went a thing, and charms are like a huge fan favorite. We see them crop up occasionally, like usually in faction sets, but yeah, there was a time obviously they weren't tied to any factions, but yeah, they're small cheap spells that have like 3 small options that normally wouldn't be worth spending a whole card on, but when you got the choice of 3 on a single card, then it becomes quite good. So Ivory Chime either gives all creatures -2/-0 in turn, which is actually okay as a kind of semi-fog effect, or prevent 1 damage to a creature or player, which is obviously a bit rubbish, or tap target creature. So I think it's that first effect, like as a kind of to mess up combat math, is I think probably the best one. But like there's always circumstances where those other 2 options would be good as well. 2 pacifisms, 2 Gracks. I say like the first printing of Grack really, and pacifism in general. So yeah, we love Grack. He's like unofficial channel mascot, I suppose, because he just crops up so much. And then a single Ritual of Steel, 2 and a white. When aura goes on a creature, draw a card at the beginning of the upkeep of the turn after Ritual of Steel comes into play. Like, just let me draw the card now, you know. But yeah, it's okay. Enchanted creature gets +0/+2. So obviously, like, really overcosted just to give something +0/+2 and like to draw a card. Really, really overcosted. But yeah, say early days, and auras were just like not as good as they would become, I suppose. And then a single Vitalizing Cascade, X a green and a white, gain X+3 life. Sure, it's actually, you could just like pay this for green and white and gain 3 life if you really wanted to, but obviously that's not, I think, a super efficient use of mana. It's okay, like late game, just sink a bunch of mana into it and just gain some life. I suppose it's okay. And then a single Grasslands, so it comes into play tapped. You can tap, sacrifice Grasslands, search your library for a forest or plains card, put that land into play, shuffle your library afterwards. So there we go, like budget fetch land, I suppose, that comes into play tapped. So you can't pop it immediately, but you can use it to. It doesn't say basic forest or plains, so you can use this to get like non-basic forests and plains. That's always an option there. So yeah, this is really interesting. This got included, and also Mountain Valley as well, which does exactly the same, but for mountains or forests. So yeah, really cool to include both of these in, actually. They're kind of like the original fetch lands, I suppose. And then 10 plains, 10 forests, and a single mountain, I say, for that single red card we've got. So let's talk about what could have been. I think the immediate easy choice is just take out Sawback Manticore and put either Asmira Holy Avenger or Canopy Dragon in. I think both these would have fit just like a lot better. So Asmira, I think, is actually still, again, sort of okay by today's standards-ish. So 2 green and white for a 2/3 flying at the end of each turn. Put a +1/+1 counter on Asmira for every creature that basically like died this turn, or every creature you control that died this turn, which I think is actually pretty okay, considering it's also got flying as well, so it becomes a big beefy flyer that gets stronger when your stuff dies. I think that would have been okay, definitely better than the Sawback Manticore, I think. Canopy Dragon is just kind of like a big dumb creature, I suppose, like 4 and double green, 4/4 trample. You can spend 2 mana to give it flying, but make it lose trample, I suppose, if you wanted to do that, I suppose. And also Zebra Unicorn, this could have found room, I suppose. 2 green and white for a 2/2. It's basically Spirit Link. For every 1 damage it deals, gain 1 life, so essentially lifelink, isn't it? So a few other options here. So Granger Guildmage, you could have lent into this, or you maybe included more red in the deck. So 1 green mana, you can pay kind of like the original Battle Mages or Apprentices, like from Invasion Block, I suppose. So 1 white mana, tap to give a creature first strike turn, which like a lot of the creatures in the deck really appreciate, or 1 red to have it deal 1 damage to target creature player and then 1 damage to you, which is, that's okay, I suppose. At least it's a bit of indirect damage. But yeah, you could have included this. Matenda as well. So it's a 1 mana 2/1, which at the time was sort of okay. When it attacks, defending player may pay 1 blue mana to have it deal no combat damage this turn, which is, at least it's making them use up mana to do that, I suppose. I think just having it in here would just make it like just a really efficient attacker, just include it for that reason. And if you just need another flyer, Melesse Spirit was here as well. So 3 and double white for a 3/3 with flying and protection from black, which I think is just fairly solid and could have found a place here, I suppose. So overall, I do actually, I quite like this one actually. I think it's green white and it's got some fairly like for the time efficient creatures in it. I say the only downside is it's included, it's splashed red for like I think just really no reason. I think it would have been just perfectly fine it just being green white and just I do like it's got like the Griffin tribal aspect as well. I think that's very charming and makes it kind of stand out a bit more than like some of these other decks. So yeah, overall, I think this one is quite nice. I think it's pretty good. And I say the inclusion of Worldly Tutor, I think is actually absolutely bonkers. But yeah, I'd love to know what you think about this one. So if you have any thoughts or stories or comments, opinions about the deck, like if you managed to play this one online when it was released, stick a comment below and we'll have a discussion about it. I'll give it a read. I always like reading people's comments. But until then, thanks for watching and listening. And in the next one, we'll look at another Mirage MTGO deck. So yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Have a good day.